The president may have pardoned turkeys this Thanksgiving, but could he be putting Ukraine on the chopping block? We look at all sides of the administration's so-called peace plan to end Russia's nearly 12-year war against Ukraine. First, we dive into the document that someone must have found so damaging that they leaked it and Bloomberg published it. It showed U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff coaching the Russians on how to get their way with President Trump in a 28-point plan that essentially would amount to Ukraine's surrender. President Trump has dismissed concerns, though, calling it traditional statecraft.
I haven't heard it, no, but that's a standard thing, because he's got to sell this to Ukraine. He's got to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's what a deal maker does.
So you're not worried that he's too pro-Russian?
No, I think, look, this war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing.
Once again, tilting towards the Russian narrative. And once the leak was out, Moscow started backpedaling. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov saying that only the Putin demands made at this summer's summit with Trump in Alaska would be acceptable.
If the spirit and letter of Anchorage are lost in the key understandings we have documented, then of course the situation will be fundamentally different. But so far, I repeat, no one has officially communicated anything to us.
As a flurry of emergency shuttle diplomacy takes off to reshape this, we will talk to the former Ukrainian foreign minister and the former US Secretary of State. So first to John Kerry here in London to receive a special honorary knighthood from King Charles for his efforts to tackle climate change. But I asked him, is all of this about Ukraine and Russia just normal statecraft? This week has been really dominated by what on earth is the US doing regards trying to bring a peace to Ukraine that looks heavily tilted, according to all the links and leaks, towards Russia. So, Trump, the president, says, oh, but this is nothing but, normal statescraft. I want to ask a statesman who's engaged in high-stakes negotiations, is it normal?
I would say this has proven to be fairly normal for how the Trump administration chooses to do its diplomacy. I think just plunking something down and giving somebody sort of an ultimatum, you have to decide this by Thursday, not a great way to begin. I hope they're successful. Genuinely, we hugely hope they're successful. This war must end. But President Putin has a set of very clear objectives. And needless to say, in any kind of treaty or end of war, both sides will not get everything, and you have to find the sweet spot of where you can land so that they're satisfied significantly enough that their people, their countries, will not rebel or feel that they somehow gave away the store.
What do you think Putin is getting out of this current administration?
Well, I don't think anybody can explain precisely why there appears to be this excessive sensitivity to President Putin. And I think a lot of people feel that the absence of some of the sanctions which could have been put in place, the absence of some of the greater pressure on President Putin has changed what you can put on the table and then negotiate about. Obviously, there are huge implications here for Europe also. Russia continues to promulgate these episodes of invading airspace with drones and testing and, back and forth, playing a dangerous game. Mm-hmm. And Europe is concerned, as it should be.
You talked about the kind of pressure, sanctions, et cetera, that should be brought to bear on Putin to make him feel the need to come to a negotiation. I have recently been speaking to the former NATO Secretary General, who was Secretary General in 2014, when you were in office, Jens Stoltenberg, who's written a memoir, and he's very clear that he regrets that the United States, Europe, etc., didn't put enough pressure, whether it was sanctions or military aid to Ukraine, on Putin after the annexation of Crimea and the first invasion of the Little Green Men into eastern Ukraine. Do you accept that in retrospect, that you should have done much more then?
I think it is so easy to sit here and see a situation where a number of years later, something happens and you say, oh gosh, why didn't we do this or that then? But I remember very clearly, as does President Obama and everybody in that administration, that there was an initial stage where already what had been happening in Donbass and Luhansk had been exacerbated. And these, quote, little green men were running around in, nameless uniforms.
Otherwise known as Russian
troops. But because of a very different history with Crimea, and at that point, only a beginning of this process of understanding Putin's full ambitions, sanctions were immediately put in place. I think there was as the initial evaluation of this new tactic was being done, there was some consideration to how do you put pressure, but not start World War III.
Right. That's what everybody's saying, including Biden and then Trump and everybody. To be fair,
it's
Trump
very
likes,
real.
I know.
To be fair, it's very real. Now, that said, everybody now understands exactly what the game plan is. Everybody understands the danger of that game plan. I think one has to be tougher. I think you have to make it crystal clear. He thinks he's going to win. He thinks he is winning. And that equation has to be changed if you're going to get the full measure of what you want. That's why I think members of the United States Senate, Republican and Democrat, are increasingly concerned about the direction this may be taking. The old saying, peace at any cost? No. And you have to be certain that the long-term interests for real peace that can be held on to may take a little longer and may take a little more pain.
Now you've got the Pentagon investigating Senator Mark Kelly over, quote, serious allegations of misconduct, after he also said in the video that American troops can refuse illegal orders. So I'm asking you, not as former Secretary of State, but as America's most famous Vietnam vet, who, are known for having explained to the Congress and everybody why their war in Vietnam was going wrong. What do you say to people like Mark Kelly and the others, or even to the Pentagon?
I think this singling out of people and suggesting you're going to bring them back and put them into, service again for the sole purpose of then trying them or court-martialing them, I think it's un-American. I think it is not in keeping with the spirit with which American citizens join the military and go in and serve their country, and such a distinguished career from so many of these folks. And then you turn around and start threatening them with court-martial and with death for sedition that, it's just, it's really hard to watch. And it's very sad for our country, and I think for the military to have this kind of dissension in leadership. And it's quite extraordinary to have a Secretary of Defense whose service is not that long and strong, I guess.
Major Hegseth you're talking about.
I'm just talking about not having somebody there, and all of a sudden you're concerned about people who are fat, and you're addressing people who fought for their country, who've served, unbelievably high qualified service with 4 stars on their shoulders. There's something really disturbing about that. And my hope is that that'll stop, or that maybe the Commander-in-Chief will join in and set an example.
Secretary Kerry, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.